Tonight is Thursday night, the 5th of September. The time is around, I think it's around 10 o'clock. I'll give you a more precise figure in a second because I'm now calling up data on NGC7450, a galaxy in Aquarius. It's magnitude 13. Face on 1.8 by 1.8 arc minutes, a spiral lowercase a, 141 million light years distant. It's at minus almost 13 degrees. And we are now in the NGC series, 7450 series, just across the 23rd hour of Right Ascension. One more hour before us. I've taken some time to progressively resynchronize studies throughout the evening, and I've already done about 10 or 15 minutes of recording of reviewing some of last night's studies that were overhead and were getting blocked, and I think we've got some pretty good imagery. Plus, I did an extensive discussion of that 1.2 billion light year distant galaxy that we discovered last night. I believe it was NGC 4427. We're going to have to be quick because the battery's already kind of used from earlier and I didn't give it much time to charge up. As we watch NGC 7451 come on the screen, I have to mention, today I spent 4 or 5 hours putting together last night's studies by having to constantly review the skylive.com in order to review Schmidt camera images and star fields that are inverted and rotated, and it was very challenging, especially for a person who's more into abstraction than concrete activities as myself, to go through and try to verify as much as possible that we were actually looking at the studies that we expected to see. NGC 7451 is a galaxy in Pegasus, magnitude 14, 1 by 0.5 arc minutes, spiral with a bar, the lowercase bc, 301 million light years distance, probably about the size of our own Milky Way galaxy, 100,000 light years. It's at plus 8.5 degrees declination. NGC 7452 is a galaxy in Pisces, magnitude 15, small, 0.4 by 0.4 arc minutes. It's just designated as a spiral galaxy. It's at almost plus 7 degrees declination. Hopefully it'll turn up on the screen so I don't have to spend as much time tomorrow tracking down star fields in the skylive.com. This one's an easy one. No double checking against star fields on this one. NGC 7454 is a galaxy in Pegasus, magnitude 11.8, 2.2 by 1.6 arc minutes, so football shaped, elliptical, 84 million light years distant. It's at plus 16 and almost a half degrees. NGC 7455 is a galaxy in Pisces, magnitude 14.2, smallish, 0.6 by 0.4 arc minutes, a football-shaped elliptical, 355 million light years distant, which puts it at about 60 to 70,000 light years in diameter. It's at plus 7 degrees. I learned from last night that I had to be very tight about timing if I wanted to catch these far northern galaxies. NGC 7457 is a galaxy in Pegasus, magnitude 11.2, probably the brightest and largest of the evening, 4 by 2.3 arc minutes, so rather oblately presented spiral of the lenticular class O, a mere 40 million light years distant. It's at plus 30 degrees, and basically this one's about half the size of our own Milky Way, maybe 50,000 light years in diameter, but it's giving a nice showing on the middle of the screen. If things are turning up a little better tonight on the screen, it's because I took some time to realign the mount and create a new model. I did it for the east and the west. The values and the parameters didn't look quite as good as last night's, but I am getting much better results. I did make a few mechanical adjustments in declination and the azimuth. This is NGC 7458, a galaxy in Pisces, brightish, magnitude 12.5, 1.4 by 1.2. It's an elliptical galaxy, 224 million light years distant, almost 2 degrees above the celestial equator. NGC7459 is another galaxy in Pisces, faint, magnitude 16, 0.4 by 0.4 compact galaxy. All we're really going to see on this one is the core. I wouldn't expect to see any sense of fuzziness about it. It's at plus 6 3/4 degrees declination, and this is the kind of thing that could be a real head scratcher if your alignment's off. Because as I said before, you can expect to see a couple of galaxies on every screen, especially when you look off axis from the Milky Way. NGC 7459. NGC 7460 is a galaxy in Pisces, magnitude 13, 1.5 by 1.1 arc minutes, a spiral with a bar, and some peculiarities. 145 million light years distant, plus 2, slightly over 2 degrees above the celestial equator. Galaxies in magnitude 13 near the equator and brighter are generally easily recognized, especially if you know the dimensions of the galaxy. You can usually pick them out on the screen, but who wants to work that hard? How about having a go-to mount that really just nails it? Wouldn't it be nice? NGC 7461 is a galaxy in Pegasus. Magnitude 13.3, 0.9 by 0.7 arc minute spiral with a bar, look for that, and lenticular O class, 194 million light years distant, plus 15.5 degrees. NGC 7463, a galaxy in Pegasus again, magnitude 13.2. This one's interesting. It's 3 by 0.6 arc minutes, so it should be obviously a edgy on spiral looking. Although I would usually expect it to, you'd be about 10 times the width compared to the length of a particular galaxy for a pure edge on. This is a spiral with a bar and a lowercase b, but it's got peculiarities to it. 110 million light years distant and plus almost 16 degrees in declination. Now NGC 7464 was very close to 7463. It's much smaller, so maybe we noticed it already on the screen. Magnitude 13.3, face-on elliptical, 0.5 by 0.5 arc minutes, so 87 million light years distant and plus 16 degrees. So I think I heard one click of the stepper motor on this one. And we're clearly in some kind of grouping of galaxies, whether they're gravitationally bound or just line of sight, because there was just another small jump. This is probably the brightest of the galaxies, NGC 7465, galaxy of Pegasus, magnitude 12.6, football shape, 1.2 by 0.8 arc minutes, a spiral with a bar, and lenticular, class O, 88 million light years distant, and it's at plus almost 16 degrees in declination, although slightly further to the NGC 7466, another galaxy in Pegasus, much further north though, plus 27 degrees, and almost being blocked by the roof trine. It's magnitude 13.6, 1.5 by 0.5, so a subobliquely presented galaxy. Spiral with a lowercase b, 335 million light years distant. This one's about the size of the Great Andromeda Galaxy, about 150,000 light years in width. It's at plus 27 degrees. Heading back south a little bit, but still in Pegasus. NGC 7467, galaxy, magnitude 15.6 and small, 0.4 by 0.3, and elliptical, exactly 500 million light years distant, 500 million. It's at plus 15.5 degrees in declination. Not too far from 7467 is NGC 7468, galaxy Pegasus, magnitude 13.7, 0.9 by 0.6, a pure elliptical, football-shaped elliptical, 94 million light years distant and plus 16.5 degrees. and declination. NGC7460-69, a little more distant, galaxy in Pegasus, magnitude 12.3, but smallish, 1.4 by 1 arc-minute, spiral with a bar, 220 million light-years distant, almost plus 9 degrees in declination. NGC7472 is a galaxy in Pisces. It's also 7482. I'll have to remember that. It's magnitude 13.6, 0.6 by 0.4, arc-minute elliptical, 224 million light-years distant. It's at plus 3 degrees. I would say that it's probably half the size of our Milky Way, but much more condensed with stars. NGC 7473 is a galaxy in Pegasus, pretty far north, plus 30 degrees. Magnitude 13.7, 1.1 by 0.5, so oblately presented spiral with a bar. It's lenticular, 316 million light-years distant, about the size of our own Milky Way. It's at plus 30 degrees, as mentioned earlier, but not being blocked as of yet by the roof truck. NGC 7474 is a galaxy in Pegasus, magnitude 15.2, but a little larger, 0.7 by 0.7 arc-minutes, lenticular, spiral, class O, 450 million light-years distant, and plus 20 degrees. Should be quite apparent on the screen. Not too far from NGC 7475, probably in the same field as a galaxy in Pegasus. 7475, its magnitude 15.1, 1 by 0.6 arc-minutes. It's an elliptical, 494 million light-years distant, and plus 20 degrees in declination. Now turn the corner, we're heading towards in the back half of the sequence 7450 to 7499. This is NGC 7477. Galaxy in Pisces, faintish, magnitude 15.7, smallish, 0.3 by 0.2 arc-minutes, simply denoted as a spiral. It's at plus 3 degrees. Had to skip over something that was too far south in Grus. Lost a bar on the battery of the handheld camera. NGC 7478 is a galaxy in Pisces, a bit of a skip from the last one, magnitude 15.6, fainter, 0.4 by 0.3 arc-minutes, a spiral with a lowercase a. This one's 591 million light-years distant. It's at plus 2.5 degrees. At that distance, it's probably about 75 to 80,000 light-years in diameter, smaller than our own galaxy. Probably the best view in a galaxy of the night. We have a near edge-on spiral, NGC 7479. It's a galaxy in Pegasus. Bright, magnitude 10.9, 4 by 3.1 arc-minutes, spiral with a bar, lowercase bc, 109 million light-years distant, puts this at about 125,000 light-years in diameter. It's at plus 12 degrees. Looking very edge-on for those dimensions, however, 4 by 3.1 from what I can tell on the screen. Interesting, isn't it? That must be the bar. Yes, indeed. Step right up. Mount just went a little wacky. NGC 7480A is a galaxy in Pisces, magnitude 15.1 by 1.3 by 0.3. We may have already called this one spiral of lowercase a, 212 million light-years distant, plus 2.5 degrees. There's a B, and that was the one I was going to when the mount decided it wanted to go severely west, and I had to interrupt. So let's go take a look at that. Just a little click away. This is NGC 7480B. Let me look up the data on it. Still recording, eh? Well, how you doing out there? I'm sitting on the floor in the chill, and I'm enjoying the heck out of doing this tour. And it's great to be able to share it with the ones or twosies of you who out there actually that like to go to the channel and check it out. You're welcome, and I hope you're out there with your own telescopes doing sky watching. NGC7450b is a galaxy in Pisces, magnitude 15.5, so a little bit fainter. 0.6 by 0.3 arc minutes, spiral with a lowercase b, still 2.5 degrees above the celestial equator. NGC 7481 is probably not to be seen on the screen. We're way too far south, minus 20 degrees. It's a galaxy in Aquarius, you'll just have to take my word for it. Magnitude 16.9, 0.4 by 0.2 arc minutes. If it were overhead, I think we'd be able to figure it out, but I doubt we have any sense of it whatsoever to screen. But I'll be just delighted on the manana to be proven wrong. NGC 7483, however, should be quite easily found on the screen. It's a galaxy in Pisces, magnitude 13, 1.6 by 1.1 arc minutes. Got a bar, spiral with a lowercase a, 222 million light years distant. I figure it's probably somewhere around 110 to 120,000 light years in diameter. It's at plus 3.5 degrees. And I'm sure it's turned up as long as the scope has been performing as well as it has in terms of GO2 over the course of this evening. This is Deep South Culmination. NGC 7484 is a galaxy in SCL, and I don't know what SCL is, frankly, sorry. But it's bright, magnitude 11.8. Nearly face-on, 1.8 by 1.7 arc minutes, elliptical, 119 million light years distant, and minus 36 degrees. And the screen actually looks pretty clean from my perspective. And if it ends up anywhere in this region here, I will feel utterly and completely vindicated by the alignments that were accomplished earlier and all of the synchronization that had to go forward. But there are several galaxies on the screen. I am blown away by how good that screen looks for being this far south. We're paying for that deep south view now because we're getting some partial blockage of the aperture with the roof tri. NGC 7485 is a galaxy in Pegasus, magnitude 13.1. Pure oblate, 1.2 by 0.6 arc minutes, spiral of the lenticular type, 266 million light years distant, plus 34 degrees, and yeah, well, now that things are culminating, I may have to review this again next opportunity to go out earlier in the evening. Well, I'm not sure, but I believe the next index number was NGC 7486. It's a galaxy in Pegasus. It was only a click away from, I believe it was 85. This one's magnitude 16.7. Well, great test, except we're getting partial obstruction of the lens of the telescope. 0.3 by 0.2 arc minute spiral, 34 degrees. I'm going to press GO2 to see if this changes because I'm not confident I'm actually pointing at 7486. Let's see. Didn't go anywhere, so yes, indeed, 7486. I suspect we're getting a partial block on this one too. NGC 7487, Galaxy Pegasus, magnitude 14.8, 2 by 1.8 arc minutes, spiral to lenticular type, 423 million light years distant. This one's probably somewhere around 225 to 30,000 light years in diameter. It's at plus 28 degrees, but we are getting some blockage. NGC 7488. Galaxy in Pisces, magnitude 13.8, 0.6 by 0.5 arc minutes, spiral the lenticular class, 561 million light years distant. I'd say it's probably about 80 to 90,000 light years in diameter. I'm not sure if we're getting any obstruction on this one. No, we're not. So this is great. We're getting a perfect view of it. So 561 million light years. As you see, 7489, a galaxy in Pegasus, partially obstructed. Magnitude 13.4, 2.1 by 1.1 arc minute, spiral, lowercase c, and d, which means, I believe it means diffuse. So it doesn't have a very bright core. 282 million light years distant is plus 23 degrees. This one could be very interesting to pick out. It's going to look like maybe a planetary nebula with some of the donut hole filled in. Anyway, 7489. All right, NGC7490 is really got very little lens collecting light here. It is a Galaxy in Pegasus, magnitude 12.3, 2.7 by 2.6, spiral with lowercase bc, 281 million light years distant. So it's significantly larger in size than the Andromeda Galaxy, probably about 200,000 light years. It's at plus 32 degrees. We're not seeing much of it, but we are seeing some stars on the screen. NGC7491 with 2 power bars left on the camera. It's a Galaxy in Aquarius, magnitude 14.5, 1 by 0.7 arc minutes, spiral with lowercase bc, 279 million light years. I'd say it's probably about 80,000 light years in diameter. It's at minus 6 degrees. Well, I bet you thought it was going to be galaxies all night. This is a globular cluster in Aquarius, very faint, magnitude 11.2. NGC7492 is about 4 arc minutes in size. Its brightest stars are magnitude 15.5. It's a class 12, very diffuse and distant, 82,000 light years. It's at minus 15.5 degrees, and I have no sense of a globular cluster on the screen, maybe right up here. So those are the brightest stars only, and no sense of core. But it is a fairly faint one. I have seen them, imaged them down to about magnitude 12. I don't recall which one it was, and I wouldn't expect myself to do so either. But we did get a globular cluster in this evening. NGC7494 is a Galaxy in Aquarius, magnitude 15.8 by 0.7 arc minute elliptical, 354 million light years distant. It's probably about the size of the Milky Way. It's at minus 24 and almost a half degrees declination. NGC7495 is a Galaxy in Pegasus, a classic, magnitude 13.1, 1.8 by 1.6 arc minutes, spiral with a lowercase c, 220 million light years distant, and it's at plus 12 degrees. It's probably about 125,000 light years in diameter. Should be one of the finest views of the evening. NGC7497 is a Galaxy in Pegasus, a little fainter than the one earlier in the evening, but larger. Magnitude 12.2, 4.4 by 1.7 arc minutes. Spiral with a bar, lowercase c, a mere 76 million light years distant, but that puts it at probably somewhere around 80,000 light years in diameter. It's at plus 18, and now we've progressed to about 23 hour 9 minutes in terms of right ascension. Heading south again. NGC7498 is a Galaxy in Aquarius, magnitude 15. May not see it. 0.9 by 0.4 arc minutes, 356 million light years distant, so about the size of our own Milky Way, maybe a little larger, minus 24.5 degrees in declination. I still got 2 bars. Last NGC catalog view of the night, NGC7499 is a Galaxy in Pisces, brightish, magnitude 12.8, 1.2 by 0.7 arc minutes, spiral of the lenticular class O, 524 million light years distant. Still half of the most distant galaxy viewed yet, which was NGC, I believe, 7427. This one is at 7.5 degrees declination, and we've proceeded 10 minutes into the 23rd hour throughout the course of this evening, and I will only be able to tell mañana whether or not with the alignment, go-to alignment adjustments I made have really begun to nail it, because as I mentioned earlier, it's a bit of a challenge to try to find, verify the idea of a galaxy when you're using the DSS images, digital sky survey images, which don't look anything like what you're seeing on the screen here. Much finer stars, much blacker background, and more detail in galaxies. Very nice work was done with that project from the mid-1900s. Messier 110, anyone? Let's watch it take form on the screen. It's a beautiful sky position. There's no blockage of the aperture. We're probably within 8 degrees of being on the zenith. I'm hoping we get a good view. Obviously we see the core region, and then I'm seeing on the camera lens quite a bit of extension. Probably about 6 arc minutes of the galaxy are visible from what I can tell. Messier 110, and yet not our Carpe Noctem moment, because I have yet to see the best possible view of the triangulum galaxy, Messier 33. Let's make that hop next. Okay, I've gone ahead and bumped up all the settings on the real-time imager, their maxes. Remember what they were? 256 flood, 44.8 decibels of auto gain control. The night is very transparent for around here. The Milky Way is still quite obvious, even though we're moving away from the summer season when it's when it's at its densest. So I think this may be one of the best views we get of the triangulum galaxy possible, and all I have to do is try to be as still as possible and allow the CCD imager charge coupled devices to soak up as many photons as they can and display them on the screen. There's quite a wealth of detail and texture visible in the triangulum galaxy, much more than an M33, which just overpowers the screen. I'm sorry, M31. I may go back to it, however, just to see if we can get some of the extensions. But let's assume this is our Carpe Noctem moment. However, doesn't it make sense to see if these settings do us any good when it comes to the great Andromeda galaxy? And especially given the fact that we've got such good go-to performance and accuracy this evening. So let's bid adieu to the triangulum galaxy, Messier 33. So here we see the core of Messier 31, the great Andromeda galaxy. The scope is not being blocked in any way, but there is a little bit of red light being reflected from street lights in the region. This is our holotype of galaxies that I have mentioned in previous videos that allows me to be able to get a sense of how mature a galaxy is and how large it is, based using Messier 31 as a reference. Most galaxies are pretty much like Messier 31. However, a few of them can be several magnitudes brighter in terms of their size and distance. So if Messier 31 was to be rescaled to be the size of a distant galaxy, and then it was to be at that distance, some galaxies can be several magnitudes brighter than Messier 31 would appear if it were the same size and the same distance. Those galaxies are very mature. They've converted a great deal of their cold, dark matter into stars. We're not talking dark matter here. We're talking about the dust and gas between the stars that gets converted into stars over time. And when a galaxy is able to convert just virtually all of its cold, dark matter into stars, they become extremely mature, extremely brilliant, and they are basically in a phase where, unless they absorb another galaxy, those stars will age out, and eventually that galaxy will have matured to a point of abstraction. But there's our view for tonight of Messier 31's core, and I hope you enjoyed it. Carpe Noctem.